Okay, so this is the last video in our series, and we're going to combine two topics into one here. The first one is really just reading credit card statements, very life skills sort of topic where we're just going to look at the credit card statement below and answer a few questions. Then after that, we're going to look at calculating fees and charges on credit cards in the second part. So just going straight in, as I said, this first part is fairly self-explanatory. We're really given a credit card statement here, and it's just getting used to reading and pulling out the key bits of information. So for this first one, it's asking what is the credit card account number. So here we are just looking for the actual number on the credit card. So you can see here, at least in Australia where we're filming from, you have MasterCard, that's a type of credit card you have, and we have the number over here. So this here is our card account number, this 5353. Now I'm just going to write here account number. Part B is saying what is the opening balance. So as you can probably figure, we're really just looking at finding the bits on the actual statement. So we have the opening balance here, and that's going to be $207.72. I'll actually write that down here. $207.72. The payment due date is part C, so we just want to find where the due date is, and I can see it over here. Let's highlight it. We have payment due date. So this is when your payment is actually due, when you have to pay by. So we can write here 30th of November, or 30/11. The minimum payment we have just below it. This is our minimum payment, and we can write that in as $25 down here. And finally, the closing balance, which is just underneath that again. So our closing balance here, $460.14. So most of these questions, at least the textbook that I'm working through in the Australian syllabus, or the New South Wales syllabus I should say, is really just about interpreting these and answering the particular questions, looking for main key points, opening balance, closing balance, due dates, and things like that. Now we're going to move to a little bit of a trickier question. This is to do with calculating fees and charges on a credit card. And we're going to break down this question together, and we're mainly just using the concepts we learned in the previous video about the compound interest with credit cards. So this question, I'll underline the key points, or highlight I should say. It's saying Hillary has a debit of $6,000 on a credit card with an interest rate of 14.75% per annum that compounds daily. I'm going to do that in a different color just to draw attention to it. If you remember in the previous video, we said that most of these credit cards will actually compound and you'll get charged interest on a daily basis. Okay. The next part, it's saying she decided to transfer the balance to a new card with a 0% balance transfer for 6 months. So that means that interest is not getting charged for these 6 months. However, after 6 months, the new card reverted to an interest rate of 19.75% per annum that compounds daily. Is Hillary better off after 12 months? So this is quite a wordy question. It's very common to just look at this and kind of panic because there's a lot of words, but we've underlined the main bits. I'm going to split this up into comparing because it's asking, is Hillary better off? So we're going to look at two options basically. We're going to look at option one, which is the old card. And that I'm going to isolate as this first section. Okay, so this is just a regular card compounding daily at an interest rate of 14.75% per annum. So what we're going to do, we want to calculate the future value of both of these. So for option one, I'm going to say that my future value, just taking the compound interest future value we did in the previous video, I have my present value of $6,000, and continuing my formula, I'm going to add 1 plus the rate. But now remember, once again, the per year rate is 14.75%. So to find the rate per day, I need to divide this number. I'm going to convert it to a fraction, 1475. I want to divide this by 365. And under this option, it goes for the entire year. So let me make a little bit more space. And we're going to take this to the power of 365. Why? Because in this first case, we're looking at an entire year, which is 365 days. So this is going to give us approximately, rounded to 2 decimal places, $6,953.39. Now, option 2 is going to be slightly different. Option 2 is our new card. With our new card, I've got to consider some other things. So there is a 0% balance, so no interest being charged for 6 months. Then after that, the next 6 months, I'm getting charged at a higher interest rate, compounding daily. So basically, what I want to consider, the rate doesn't change, but the interest rate only comes into play after 6 months. I'm actually going to write that in. So interest rate only applies for 6 months. Okay, so that means that I only have 6 months of this interest compounding. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to think about this in terms of days, because as you remember in the previous section, my power here was 365 because there are 365 days in a year. That means the days in 6 months, I'll write everything down here, days in 6 months is this 365 days in a year divided by 2, because 6 months is half of a year. And that gives me 182.5 days. Okay, so this is the amount of days that my interest is being charged on. So the principal is going to remain the same, just $6,000 for the first 6 months. The next 6 months, that's when we start compounding. So this number, 182.5, becomes my power. So on my new card, the future value of it, let's fix that up a bit. The future value is going to equal the same principal of $6,000. Now, I'm going to, because remember, this is still a rate per annum, 19.75, this rate for my new option for the card. I want to take this, and I'm still trying to find an interest rate, a daily interest rate. So what I'm going to do, writing this as a decimal, 0.1975, I need to divide this by 365 as we would in all other credit card interest questions. Now, the only difference here is interest is being charged only for 6 months. So that's why the power goes from 365 in the first bit to 182.5 in the next. This is 6 months, the amount of days in half a year, or 6 months. Now, when I get that, I find out that this gives me approximately $6,622.57. So we can clearly see that there's less of a future value for the second option compared to the first option, which means it pays off more to go with this second card, to actually transfer the balance over to this new option. And we find the saving by just seeing the difference between the two. So Hillary is actually better off with this second option. Let's just calculate the saving, because when you guys go ahead and do this in your own lives when you're comparing credit cards, you want to actually see how much money you are saving. So we're going to take my 6,953.39 and we're going to subtract 6,622.57, and that is going to give me 330.82. But this is how we can break down these types of questions when we're comparing different credit card interests here. But that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.